$500 a day? That's right. You literally can get charged $500 a day if you do not do your due diligence and be aware of the things you need to know before you make that investment. So make sure you stay tuned because I'm going to highlight some of the things you need to be aware of if you're looking to invest in a Bryan-College Station area. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Welcome back to my channel, Living and Investing in Bryan-College Station. So today we're focusing on the investing when you are someone who is already know, hey, College Station is a great town that I know I can make great investments. And so I just want to highlight what are the things you need to be aware of. So if you're looking to invest within the next 9 days, 90 days, or even 9 months, make sure you book a time with me so that I can know what is your buy box and criteria so that we can make sure I get you some off-market deals because we work with a lot of investors. Or if we just can make sure I put you on the list when deals come available. But one thing I think people need to be aware of is when you're looking to invest in a college town like Bryan-College Station and you've never invested, I want you to know, number one, the leasing season is different. So most of the time you're used to January to December when it comes to your leasing season in just normal investments. Well, college town like Bryan-College Station really go off the terms of the school year. So oftentimes you will find your leases is going to end around June or July and they're going to start back around August or September. And that is what makes a year. Now, sometimes you have college students that who stay, and also you don't have just college students here. You have young professionals who end up staying after they graduate or who get jobs when it comes to opportunities that they have through internships. But I think that's the number one thing you need to be aware of is that the leasing season is different. So maybe you are now starting to dive into this search on investing in student rentals. Well, you just need to make sure you are planning for your reserve and for any repairs that need to be done on houses. So as you can think, summertime is generally the time where you have vacant houses. Now, depending on if you're managing or if you have good team to give you insight on how you can make sure it's filled during the summertime, this is often a time that you will find during the summer when you need to do any of your repairs, when people are moving out, and getting it ready for when the school season starts up. So that's the first thing I think you need to be aware of when it comes to investing in a college town like Bryan-College Station. The leasing season is different than your normal investments. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about where do you want to invest? Let's go. So let's talk about proximity. Now, one of the beautiful things in this town is that you want to make sure you have an investment that is within probably a mile of the Cal Field. So behind me, you can see Cal Field. This is where Texas A&M football team does play. One of the things that drives an economy in any college town is going to be their sports. Now, oftentimes you have other programs within the college that also contribute, but often what I've found is that football is one of the main driving forces. And so that puts in the conversation when you're thinking about, all right, well, that may bring up short-term rental conversations. Would this be a good area for short-term rentals? You have a lot of homes within a mile radius. You have George Bush, which is one of the connecting streets of a lot of the homes, and Cal Field, where I'm at right now. And you have University, Texas Avenue, and Wellborn. Those are the 4 streets that connects all around Texas A&M. So when you think of the mile radius, oftentimes I say, well, how far are you from campus and where you're at in proximity of the actual football stadium? Because from there will tell you how much you can possibly get per room, if you can be able to do some short-term rentals, how much you can be able to get. And we can estimate that a little bit as you reach out. So if you're someone who's kind of new or you want to understand more specifics, we have a couple videos where I'll interview an investor who had a ADU where he was renting one part out and then he was Airbnb in the second one. So make sure you reach out, or you can just look at the video. But if you know specifically for you, you're someone who wants to look at the short-term rental and also look at the long-term rental, then that's a great video to look at. But that is just the question. When football season comes, this is a very, very high populated area when it comes to short-term rentals. So make sure you take that in consideration. But mile radius tell you how much you can get per room. Oftentimes, what we'll talk about in a second is anything that's 4 bedrooms or more, you have to make sure the tenants are matching the current zone within the College Station area. So that's also something to keep in mind. If you're looking to stay closer, now price points are going to be a little bit higher. You'll be looking at anywhere from, it can be as low as maybe 400,000 on up when you're looking at homes that's very close to the proximity. Now, if you're looking for a cash flow play or equity play, sometimes you can find some a little bit further out, 2 miles to 3 miles. And it's a lot of other great areas. But when people generally turn to looking at investing because of something like the Aggie football team or the Aggie sports, you just want to keep that in consideration. How close are you to campus? Because that will determine sometimes how much you can get per room, how long the leases will be, and if you can look at opportunities for short-term rentals. All right, so now let's take a look at when it comes to the restrictions that I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Come on, let's take a look at it. Now, Texas A&M is known at Cal Field for the home of the 12th man. And I personally have played as a football player in Cal Field. And I'll say the 12th man is a representation of just the crowd itself. I promise you, Texas A&M for sure is by far probably one of the #1 college atmospheres that you want to experience. So what does that have to do with you when it comes to housing? So that extra man on the field is an advantage for Texas A&M football team, and often you go to the baseball games and a lot of other sports. So also in College Station, they have what is called a restriction overlay, meaning if you buy property in a certain neighborhood, you cannot have 2 or more unrelated people that will stay in that household. And then they also have another one that is another overlay that you can't have 4 or more unrelated people in that area. So let's use this for example. Say if you bought a property and it stayed, or if it was in one of these restricted overlays, then that means if it was 2 or more unrelated people, that could cost you. Now, recently, College Station just released that if you have 4 or more unrelated people that is staying in a household, that 5th person either needs to be a family member. So if you have a sister or a brother, or even if you have some triplets that wanting to come to stay in the Bryan-College Station area and they want to stay together, they need to make sure they're related. Or if that is not met, you can get charged up to $500 a day until that person has moved out. So when you're looking at investing, you need to make sure that the properties that you're looking at, if it's within that mile radius, that you need to be aware of if it is in one of the restriction overlays. And also, how can maybe you find opportunities at houses that is still close to this Cal Field, but you can also maximize rent, because the more people you can have stay in one house, the more rent that you can get. It's certain areas in the Bryan-College Station area that you can still have 5 people stay that is not unrelated. Now that needs to be outside of the College Station zoning, and they still have some that is right outside, but it's still good distance. And so that's where when you go into the depths of that, I always say reach out so we can book a time, because if you're that person that maybe invested from out of town, and often you have a lot of Aggies who come back and want to invest because they understand the value of the rental property here, then book a time. But we want to make sure that when we look at properties, where does that property address lay? And make sure it's not in one of those restrictions, because let's just be honest, that $500 a day, it can add up very quickly. And let's just say that's not the culture in Texas A&M. All right, so let's go take a look at a couple other things. Let's go. So living in the Bryan-College Station area, you're going to have an overpopulated area. So let me just talk to the people who move in here, because maybe you're looking at investing to buy for your college student who's here. Um, but this is probably talking about the last point. It's going to help you understand why they have some of these overlay in these areas and neighborhoods. But also, if you're living here and you're looking at this video, this is going to be something you have to get used to. There is a slew of college students that live here, and they're going to also give insight to sometime restaurants when they're open, how long they're open, how they change their hours during the summer. And for you as an investor, that may not matter, because to be honest with you, as an investor, you just want to know if the numbers work, or can I get my return after the 4 year, the 5 year my students are going to live here. So the good thing for you is that you're always going to have people who are going to be staying here during the summer, even though it's not oversaturated. Um, but one thing to keep in mind is, as the city continues to grow, there's a lot of opportunity where if you're staying within that 1 mile radius, the city of College Station and Bryan is pushing certain plans where if you're standing certain zones, they want to have a more high density use. So behind me, you see campus, but also there's a lot of building on the other side. So this is Wellburn behind me. Excuse me, this is not Wellburn. This is Texas 6. Texas 6 is the connecting street. You take a left and you get on University. And in that area, you're going to see a lot of high density, high buildings that reside in that area. So what that means is College Station is doing as best as they can to try to keep the population of students within the 1 mile to 2 mile radius. So they're constantly building apartment buildings. They're constantly building newer opportunities, and also that comes with land. If you're big on wanting to develop new construction, the cost is going to go a little bit high. So you can be looking at finding land within this 1 mile radius, anywhere from 2 to 3 to even $600,000 just for a piece of land. And sometimes that can be under an acre. Oftentimes it will be underneath the acre, unless and it can get up there as far as cost is a little bit higher. But the key is, if you're an investor and you want to plant your seeds and you want to plant your roots in this close proximity of Texas A&M, well, just keep in mind is um, they have zoning, and that's favorable for you as an investor to try to find something and build high up, and that can be as minimum of 3 floors, 4 floors. Now, if you got a chance to take a look at my house hacking video, I also hit on a few things that, remember, it's College Station and you have Bryan. So they have two different agendas, because College Station is more to the university, but Bryan is more to the living part, and it is more in the development phase. So a lot more, I believe, appreciation opportunities will come from that area if you're someone who wants to try to see about you plant your money in over 5 to 10 years, you're looking to maybe sell to get into something else. I will always recommend you to Bryan. So but just keep notice, there is a lot of college students here, and right now during the summertime, it's a little bit. This street itself is a very, very popular street where you have a lot of college students. Anytime it's game time, it's packed to the brim. So this is something to take in consideration, is the certain zonings that are favorable for you as an investor looking to invest in a Bryan-College Station. And because different areas just have zoning that, outside of the restrictions that I just talked about, you want to see, hey, if I was to buy this home that's in the middle of a lot of these nicer homes, like, why haven't this one for sale? Or why is it asking a higher price? Well, oftentimes it's because of that certain zoning that they have in the city, that they know what you can be able to build. Or, and sometimes you can go through the city and get a lot of favor if you're going to build something to what they're liking. All right, so let's wrap up and highlight a couple other things that maybe I did go over or I didn't. So make sure you take a look at this last point, and as we recap, and then we'll go from there. Let's go. Okay, so as we wrap up, one thing I do want to say about investing in Texas A&M is that it has a great alumni department. And one of the things I've seen is that anytime you're looking at investing in any college town, look at how well they're supported by their alumni. How much do they come back? Do they give back? And to be honest with you, a lot of the clients that I work with are people who graduated and come back to retire in this area. Just because of the atmosphere, uh, what Texas A&M have done is unprecedented as far as building a culture that continue to bring their kids here, and it's a generation of different families who want to make sure that their kids get a part or being involved in the Texas A&M culture. So what that means for you is that there are generations of children that's going to continue to come and rent out. Therefore, the opportunity in a town like this is only going to continue to grow. So my job is to be able to continue to help you and guide you to see what's going to be the best investment. And guess what? Maybe you cannot start off the jump and getting maybe a $1.1 million property or even something bigger. But maybe the 300, the $200,000 investments that's still available as of right now. Be shooting this video, you can take a look at those. And then over time, you can say, all right, well, what do I need to do in order to get over here where I can have higher value, higher net worth, and if you desire higher cash flow. So make sure you book a time so we can be able to talk and I can figure out what your buy box is if you're already an investor. And if you're new to investing, uh, I can make sure that we do an introductory call to see where you're at in the journey. And as always, make sure you subscribe and like, as I will always continue to give you new insights when it comes to the investing and living in a Bryan-College Station. So thank you for taking out the time watching the video, and we will see you on the next one.